Welcome back. On behalf of the Rescuing Our Communities podcast, I am Clayton here to summarize the events of last night. In the interview with Mr. Victor Abraham, and another unfortunate victim of injustice by the Staten Island DA's office. So, people, in the past, I have been judged to be a problem, confrontational. They want you to believe, at least the Staten Island DA's office, in conjunction with Safe Horizon and all of the other fictitious and fraudulent domestic violence agencies of Staten Island, that I, Clayton Howard, was not a credible victim. Unfortunately for them, I was. And I have been dealing with fighting this office alone for long. But now there seems to be people who are stepping up, willing to tell their story. The first of those people spoke last night, and his name was Victor Abraham. So I allowed Victor Abraham to tell his own story of injustice, how they maliciously set him up by framing him for multiple robberies, which they tried to transfer over to the federal government to put this guy in federal prisons for robberies he never committed. Many of you may think that I am the only one who has reported on Mr. Abraham, but people, I'm not. There are others who have reported on the injustice that happened to Victor Abraham, because the story of Victor Abraham is the typical story of what Staten Island does to innocent victims who it chooses to prosecute. How detectives will falsify discovery and withhold inculpatory evidence that will literally exonerate someone who is accused of an offense that probable cause from those very same detectives may have in an unfortunate situation, like sitting on Rikers Island, or even worse, sitting in prison for crimes they have never done. Today, I am going to highlight the broadcast of a Dr. Rashid. I forgot his name. Forgive me, people, so much. Hold on. Let me look up his name real quick. Bop, 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 bop. Sorry, people. Forgive me. I am not prepared. That is not cool. Why is this not coming up on my phone? I don't know. But here is the gentleman here, as many of you can see. Where is the... Come on. This is retarded. Why can we not see this title? Come on. I'm trying to give this gentleman his due credit, because this is his channel who he... there we go. Dr. Rashid Ritchie. Back in, I believe it is... I am messing up today, people. I am so sorry. I had all of this prepared, but for some reason, my screen changed. Okay. This was 5 months ago. Okay, people, so even better. Back in February, Dr. Rashid Ritchie, he reported on Victor Abraham. As you can see, he's well-spoken. He's much cleaner than me right now, because I just tried to work out in the morning. But I want you to listen to Dr. Rashid Ritchie, with over 1 million YouTube followers, talking about the case of Victor Abraham. This interview, for you Staten Islanders who do not know what's going on, is going to give the story of Victor Abraham even more credibility, because it's not the hated member of the Staten Island community whose mother was an incredible and integral part of supporting the needy and the poor of Staten Island. I'm not credible enough. So we'll let another brother who is not from Staten Island, who is far better presenting himself than myself right now, I'll allow him to tell you the story. Forgive me.
An innocent young man spends time in prison. There's evidence of malacute him. They are not being held accountable. I'm going to give you the background to a story that you should know about. The New York Daily News did an exclusive report about Mr. Victor Abraham, a Staten Island man who spent nearly a year locked up in Rikers Island before his acquittal on 2 robbery cases, because an NYPD detective decided to withhold crucial evidence of his actual innocence. Abraham, an immigrant, from Ghana, who is engaged and has 2 children, had no criminal record before his 2 arrests. His mother was able to finally bail him out for $15,000 in September 2017 after he had been incarcerated for nearly a year. He refused a plea deal. He said no, and went on to beat all charges after a week-long Staten Island Supreme Court trial, November 2018. Do you know how rare that is? He beat it, all right? Let me give you details on the arrest. Abraham's first arrest was October 17, 2016, on charges that derived a 33-year-old man on Heberton Avenue in Port Richmond 8 days earlier. He was released on a $10,000 bail a few days after his arrest. The crook in that case brandished a gun telling the victim to remember his face as an accomplice looked on. 4 days later, the victim was on an S44 bus in Staten Island when he took a picture of a fellow rider he thought might be the gunman. The victim gave the photo to Detective Stephen Lutz of the NYPD Central Robbery Division, telling him the bus rider looked similar to the gunman, though he was not 100% sure, according to the trial transcript. The picture of the bus rider, which the news has seen, shows a teen or young man who clearly does not resemble Abraham. Nonetheless, Abraham, then 19, was arrested after the victim picked his picture in a photo array prepared by police. His federal court complaint says. It still isn't entirely clear how Lutz came to consider Abraham as a suspect in the crime, though law enforcement sources said Abraham was being eyed as a possible suspect in a robbery pattern for which 2 other men were ultimately charged by the feds. Abraham's lawyer, Robert Walters, learned of the photo taken on the S44 bus, which was mentioned in a police report prepared by Lutz and turned over to Walters at the start of Abraham's trial. But the actual photo was never entered into the case file, as is required for evidence that could clear the accused. Now you have misconduct. Detective Lutz said it wasn't necessary to put the picture in the file because the victim was not certain the photo was the right person. Though the victim said he was robbed by 3 men, only Abraham was arrested in the case. There's more. Staten Island Supreme Court Judge William Garnett tossed both of the victims' identifications of pictures of Abraham. Garnett said the photo array that the first victim viewed was unduly suggestive. Unduly suggestive? That sounds illegal. That sounds unduly illegal, Judge, because Abraham was the only one pictured in a white shirt. That's a no-no. The same thing happened in the photo array viewed by the second victim. Garnett said, see, cops know how to play these games, and they were playing the game. The judge said the case could proceed to trial, giving the DA's office the opportunity to have both victims testify. The ruling was a full year before Abraham's trial. Garnett was not yet aware of the photo of the bus rider that wasn't revealed until trial. The trial covered both of the robberies that Abraham was accused. On the witness stand, Detective Lutz admitted to the jury he did not include the picture taken of a possible suspect on the S44 bus by the adult victim on or in the October 19, 2016 robbery. Because of Judge Garnett's pretrial ruling, prosecutors were not able to tell the jury that about the teen victim's identification in October 27, 2016 robbery. It took the jury less than 2 hours to completely acquit Abraham of both crimes, said a report in the Staten Island Advance. The suit over Abraham's arrest remains pending. Settlement talks have been held, but the 2 sides have not gotten close to an agreement, court papers show. Detective Lutz retired. They let him go. They let him go home with a pension, 2022. He did not respond to requests for comment. The NYPD asked if Detective Lutz was ever disciplined, told the news to file a Freedom of Information law request to process, a process that typically takes months. Andrew Crawford, who is the spokesperson for the Staten Island DA's office, would not say why prosecutors did not press Detective Lutz for the photo taken on the bus when they turned over discovery evidence to Abraham's criminal defense lawyer. Crawford also would not say if prosecutors reported the matter to the NYPD leadership. Michael E. McMahon is the Staten Island DA since 2016. Buck stops with him. His office engaged in either a unethical or completely negligent conduct. The fallout of Abraham's incarceration, the months in jail, sent him down a spiral from which he has not been able to recover, he says. Before his arrest, he lived alone. He was working toward a high school equivalency diploma with an eye on eventually joining the Air Force. But while behind bars, he says he missed the deadline to apply for government funding. He needed to renew his lease. And after his acquittal, wound up living in an abandoned house. After he met his fiancée, the couple bounced around to different residences, including a homeless shelter. And now they live in Elizabeth, New Jersey. They're trying to stave off eviction while both struggle to find work, and Abraham grapples with his now schizophrenia. a very sad, sad story of the completely innocent human being with no criminal record, no blemish on his background, and was hoping to be able to actually be productive with his life. Taken away from him because of prosecutors and a police department that seemingly engaged in misconduct. Sharing thoughts here.
And if you were to run a background check at one of the organizations that you helm, Doc, and I'm not even suggesting you would, likely the acquittal doesn't come up before the arrest and the allegation does. So his life is essentially ruined because people who can't do a lineup right don't take the care in the system to correct their mistakes. And it's not a mistake, it's criminal misconduct. And I don't believe the jury took 2 hours, Doc. I know that's the reporting. It probably took them 2 minutes and then they wanted lunch. They just wanted lunch.
You're right. They probably agreed right away. Hell of a thing. All right. We'll bring you updates as they come.
Staten Islanders, that's what we are facing. We are facing horrible misconduct on Staten Island. Now, see, Victor Abraham was a young man who planned on going to the Air Force to serve his country. His dreams are now shattered by what Michael McMahon, Detective Lutz, and corruption on Staten Island did to him. I was just someone grieving for my late mother, who dated a woman who was angry that I broke up with her, who happens to have inappropriate relationships with someone in the Staten Island DA's office. Because this woman was able to step in as a unethical, corrupt black woman and talk to other unethical, corrupt black women like Mackenzie Upshaw, like Courtney Chase. She even dealt with Albert Crawford, who is the spokesperson for the Staten Island District Attorney's Office, who, ladies and gentlemen, I also have on recording lying to me about the fact that I was a victim of domestic violence and refusing to acknowledge the fact that an employee, Mackenzie Upshaw, had lied to me about the status of a federally protected order of protection. See, ladies and gentlemen, Staten Island is categorically corrupt. The members of the organization of the Richmond County DA's office, along with certain detectives in Staten Island, are also highly corrupt. And what they plan on doing to innocent minority men is setting us up using the very laws that are supposed to protect us as the innocent victims. This is what they did to me. This is what they did to Victor Abraham. And this is what they probably do to hundreds of black and minority males every year. It set them up on bullshit cases so Staten Island's conviction rate can seem formidable with the rest of New York City. Why was Detective Lutz never disciplined for his misconduct, his criminal misconduct, by withholding inculpatory evidence that could have cleared this young man and ruined his life? People, why has Detective Joseph Quirk not been disciplined for completely falsifying a complaint on me for Francina Evans to have me arrested for winning a trial in the state of New Jersey? For those of you who don't know, New York and New Jersey have its own constitution and own criminal code of conduct. You cannot be arrested for a crime that happened in New York and be prosecuted in New Jersey. But people, this is what happened to me. Staten Island arrested me for false reporting for something that a woman had just been found guilty of in New Jersey and who was actually facing criminal indictment. Actually, she had already been criminally indicted when they arrested me for allegedly filing a false report. Now, after a trial transcript was presented to Detective Quirk that proved everything that Miss Evans had reported was a complete lie, do you know what happened to that trial transcript? It was thrown away. It was hidden. And I was maliciously prosecuted for 9 months while executives in the Richmond County DA's office treated my lying ex-girlfriend like she was a queen, refusing to acknowledge the fact that I had a complete trial transcript that 100% vindicated me for false reporting and any harassment against Francina Evans. They made me multiple plea orders to get me to cop out to something, even though they knew I was innocent, people. But this is the Michael McMahon Staten Island that you protect. This is the Michael McMahon that members of True to Life, like Bob, I'm sorry, I don't want to say his name wrong, like Malcolm Penn and this Mike Perry, advocates and people who run for city council, like Ronti Olagunki and Bobby and Henry, I can't remember his name, but they call him Bobby Digi, like Camilla Hanks, like Charles Fall. These are all supposed to be representatives of the black community, supposed to help innocent black men. But they turned a blind eye to not only Victor Abraham, but myself, because our situations were too messy. They didn't want to put their political clout with the most racist member of Staten Island law enforcement, Michael McMahon, in jeopardy by standing up for innocent minorities like myself and Victor Abraham. And these people should be ashamed of themselves. They're no advocates. They're corrupt themselves. Camilla Hanks, corrupt. Charles Fall, corrupt. Mike Perry, corrupt. Malcolm Penn, corrupt. And unfortunately, Ronti, I've known you since you and I were in the 5th grade. You too, brother, are corrupt because you personally knew that Francina Evans had lied on me. And instead of you using your platform in the community, your strength as a black man to step up for someone you went to elementary school with and say, wait a minute, I saw this evidence and Clayton Howard is innocent. No, Ronti also hid like a coward behind a lens so he could be cool with Malcolm Penn and the rest of the people on Staten Island who secretly were sexually attracted to my ex. And if no one believes me, I have put a recording online of Malcolm Penn where Malcolm Penn talks about this. See, people, this is not about vengeance. This is about justice. And until people like myself, Victor Abraham, or the dozens of other men that have been falsely arrested and prosecuted on Staten Island receive the justice and recognition we are being denied by Darren Albanese, Albert Crawford, Courtney Chases, all who pretend to be ethically correct people. We have a platform and a right to speak against the people who have villainized us. I found out the other day that Courtney Chase filed a police report on me. Now, I believe she did that because previously I had never put the recording of her actually lying and trying to further the corruption of the Staten Island DA's office against me. So I'm assuming that Staten Island thought that I didn't have a recording of her. So they had Courtney Chase file a police report because Mackenzie Upshaw can't file a police report. There's too many texts. There's two separate recordings. She can't file a police report for harassment claiming I'm harassing her when I can literally prove through these recordings and texts that she lied to me about a federally protected order. But they assume that Courtney Chase could because they didn't hear the tape of Courtney Chase, and they're wrong. So people, I fight against Staten Island. I fight against the corrupt organization of Staten Island's district attorney's office and the unethical members of the NYPD's police department on Staten Island, who make it their mission to violate the rights of innocent black men. People, I was wrong. Victor Abraham was wrong. And there are many other innocent minorities who have been wronged by a horribly corrupt and unjust system that perpetuates itself through unethical minority advocates and minority statesmen on Staten Island, like Charles Fall, like Camilla Hanks. These people don't care about the community. They care about social media clout and votes. They'll never stand up for innocent minorities that might possibly damage their relationship with the oppressive, corrupt slave master who is Michael McMahon. Here's the truth. I know Michael McMahon. I personally have Michael McMahon's cell phone number in here, and I have spoken to him privately on more than one occasion around the death of my mother. I had no problem with Michael McMahon, people. The advocate that is Clayton Howard sitting in front of you was created by the injustice and corruption of NYPD's Staten Island Detective Squad and the corruption and malicious prosecution that was effectuated on me by the Staten Island DA's office. People, they created me, and now they're afraid of me. So what they want to do is they want to try to set me up because I'm telling the truth online, and I'm fighting and advocating against an office that has oppressed my community for decades. People, I'm tired of it. If you know an innocent minority who was falsely arrested or maliciously prosecuted on Staten Island, if you have a family member who went before the Staten Island criminal court where a district attorney falsified evidence and completely manipulated the prosecution by altering records, doing whatever it took to convince a jury that this person was guilty, you DM me because your story needs to be told. Now, I'll tell you the truth. I'm going to check you out. I'm not just going to put you up here without reading your information and make sure, and I need to see what happened because we have to do in terms of credibility. The point here is not to falsely label the Staten Island District Attorney's Office as corrupt. No, we're looking for the truth. If you were convicted because you actually did something, then brother, I'm sorry. You have to do the crime. You did the crime. You have to do the time. But if it's something you didn't do, if evidence was falsified against you, if discovery was misled to make a jury believe that you did these things, you have a constitutional right to speak against your offender and the violations that were done to you. And I, Clayton Howard, exercised my First Amendment right to speak about the injustice that was done to me. Staten Island did not have to arrest me because a woman that I dated was mad she lost the trial for an order of protection and decided to sell her. Let me correct myself. I don't want to talk bad about her. And decided to sell her soul to Staten Island's corrupt, racist law enforcement to get revenge on the man who broke her heart. The truth is she could have just apologized, dealt with her obsessive and abusive mother, and told that man, baby, I love you. Can we please talk? And I might have talked to her. But people, now she has become the face of oppression. She is the most disgusting woman on Staten Island. She is the new Tawana Brawley, Amber Heard, a woman who would utilize law enforcement to take vengeance on someone who hurt her. And Francina Evans must be stopped. Why has Francina Evans not been criminally charged with false reporting, violations to an order of protection, harassment? People, why are there 15 police reports where the Staten Island DA's office has refused to criminally prosecute Francina Evans for the violation she committed against my federally protected order of protection? People, why did they honor her less than 3 months after she was convicted in a trial of harassment and burglary? Found liable, excuse me, because it's family courts. Forgive me, I'm not a lawyer yet, so I confuse the terms. Why has she never been charged with this, people? I'll tell you why. Because they honored her. They placed her before the community to diminish my credibility as the actual victim and deny me my victim rights. And people, they were wrong. So I choose to fight them, and I choose to make them pay. I choose to expose them for what they did to me. You can come after me, Staten Island, but you'll never stop me from telling the truth. Michael McMahon, you will never shut me up from telling the truth. Detective Joseph Quirk, you will never stop me from citing the misconduct and the malicious arrest that you imposed upon me. And Francina Evans, you are my offender. And until I receive the justice that the Staten Island DA's office has denied me because of whatever unethical conduct you have going on with a male member of that organization, you will be spoken about because you violated my civil rights by lying on me. Melissa Thomas was involved. Courtney Chase is involved. Mackenzie Upshaw is involved. Albert Crawford is involved. All of these people, I have receipts that I spoke to that were aware of the misconduct and the lies that were told by Francina Evans and refused to do their ethical responsibility and speak up and vindicate an innocent victim. People, I'm not wrong for replaying the recordings to show the receipts that I spoke to Courtney Chase or Albert Crawford or Mackenzie Upshaw. I'm not wrong for showing emails from Lisa Thompson, a member of the Staten Island DA's office who additionally lied to me and pretended like she was trying to help me get my victim rights by helping me enforce the order of protection, only by lying to me so I would miss a deadline so the order of protection would expire and then not be enforceable. People, that is the true corruption that is going on Staten Island, that members of our community, minority leaders and minority statements like Camilla Hanks and Charles Fall refused to acknowledge. My mother knew both of these people. Many of you know that I am the child of Reverend Maggie Howard. My mother had relationships with Camilla Hanks. She definitely had a relationship with Charles Fall, who she considered a young man like a son. And her actual son, he allows to be set up for false rape cases and false domestic violence charges because the truth is he was probably sexually attracted to Francina Evans. I had great respect for Charles Fall. I really did. This situation has shown me the truth of Charles Fall, the truth of Camilla Hanks, the truth of men like Victor Brown, who use these positions in Staten Island to make themselves speak more important than they actually are by selling out innocent minority men for favor with the oppressive white master who is Michael McMahon. And people, I'm not going to stand on it. So on behalf of Operation Rock, that was another man telling the story of Victor Abraham. See, people, because I'm not credible. So maybe Dr. Rashid Ricky is credible with over 1 million YouTube followers telling you the exact same story that Victor Abraham told last night. People, we need better. Staten Island is horribly corrupt, and the only way to expose that corruption and fix the problem is to expose the injustice that have happened to not only myself, Victor Abraham, and anybody else who is currently fighting injustice on Staten Island. Anyone who's sitting in prison because something Staten Island did to them. Staten Island is corrupt, and together, maybe we can remove the corrupt element from our community so we can be a better community, so we can do better things, so our district attorney actually cares about the rights of minority children and doesn't have a program where he only has selected white children working with his office. Why were there no black children in the advertisement of Michael McMahon's office's initiative to clean up graffiti? I did see one Asian child, but that Asian child is not the only minority that should have been there. There should have been others there. Why did Michael McMahon invite these children to the office of the district attorney instead of going into the community of Park Hill and trying to be an advocate in Park Hill? I'll tell you why. Because that's where the savages live, and he's not going to go there. His only mission is to prosecute black people. That's the mission of Michael McMahon, the Staten Island DA's office, and the corrupt detectives of the detective squads of Staten Island. The 120, horribly corrupt. The 123, horribly corrupt. And detectives who are watching me, forgive me if this is not you, because not all detectives are bad, but there is a large handful of Staten Island that are horribly corrupt, that violate victim rights and make it their mission to falsely arrest, set up, and have prosecuted innocent black men. And unfortunately for them, they did that to Clayton Howard, and they fucked up. On behalf of Operation Rock and Justice people, this was the story of Victor Abraham. Stay tuned as we'll be back with more. Enjoy your day. God bless people. It's not only about negativity, it's about justice. And as a victim, we will get our justice. It's, the great song goes, the change will come. But change only comes when we actually fight for that change. Help me, help Victor Abraham, and help the other innocent minority men and women, because there are probably women too who have been falsely and maliciously prosecuted and arrested by members of Staten Island law enforcement. Staten Island as it needs to stop. And the only way it's going to stop is if you wake up, you take your head out of the free chicken barbecues and the free community events, and you stand against the injustice being imposed on you. Because one day it may be your son, one day it may be your father, one day it may be your cousin or your lover or someone you care about who is fighting a malicious prosecution or a false arrest that has been imposed on them and falsified and perpetuated through misconduct and unethical means by the Staten Island law enforcement system. And it's wrong. Help me stop injustice.